All right, folks, so welcome to part two. I'm just going to explain really quickly the final piece of this lesson, which is to show you an ellipse. And so I'm going to move over to the worked example and just talk you through it. Hopefully you've made all the key connections when we dealt with the parabolas and the circles. Okay, and so as I mentioned before, one of the key things, key suggestions that I would make is always work in terms of the trig graph. And so here we have x of theta, which I've written incorrectly, sorry. We've got x of theta expressed in terms of sine, and so for sine theta, so here we have our graph. Starting point for x is at 0, and x moves immediately to a maximum. Okay, and so for y it's 8 cosine theta, and so y is going to start at its maximum. And so again, time, or theta equals 0, allows us to know that the coordinates of our starting point on the graph should be x equals 0, y equals 8. And so that's highlighted over here, x equals 0, y equals 8. And then the next important part for us to figure out is how do we know that our direction in this case is clockwise. And so what we can check from here is we can take a look and see at the y graph. It doesn't necessarily help us because we're moving from the y maximum to the y minimum, and as you can see from here, we could move to the y maximum, from the y maximum to the minimum, in either direction. And so in this case, what we're going to do is we are going to look at the behavior of the x graph instead, and you can see from the x graph it moves immediately to its maximum, and that tells us 4 is its maximum, and that allows us to conclude that the direction must be clockwise. Okay, in the second part we're writing the rectangular equation exactly the same way. We're isolating each of the trig functions. Sine theta equals x over 4, cos theta is equal to x over 8, and then we're using the Pythagorean identity in order to produce our rectangular equation. Alternatively, of course, we could just read it off the graph. Last but not least, in this particular question, we're trying to change the starting point into a counterclockwise direction. The conceptual idea is exactly the same as we did with the circle, and so we use the trig graphs and we modify it so that we now want the starting point to be at 4, 0. So 4, 0 is going to be our new starting point. That's not a great color. And so we've got our new starting point is going to be at 4, 0. We want the direction also to change, and so the modifications we're going to make for the graph, x is now starting at its maximum, and then it's going to go to 0. The y value is going to start at 0 this time, and immediately, if we want it to go counterclockwise, we want y to go to its maximum. And so you can see from our graphs here, x becomes 4 cosine theta and y becomes 8 sine theta, and that allows us to change our starting point and to change our direction. Okay, answer keys for the rest of the examples are on Google Drive. Hopefully that will be enough to help you understand the lesson.